On today's show, we're going to be discussing the health benefits of yoga. Hello, I'm Shannon Skinner, and this is Extraordinary Women TV. My guest is Salimah Kassim-Lakha. She is the Executive Director of Yoga Without Borders and a yoga teacher, and she's here to give us some tips. Really looking forward to this one. Later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top success tip. You'll hear Salimah's. Well, it is so nice having you here today in the studio.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's so nice. Now, you have been doing yoga for some years. You haven't always done yoga.
No.
But there was something in your life where you said, oh my God, I need to do yoga, or I want to do yoga. Do you remember that moment?
I do remember the moment. But I have to say the lead up to that was quite anticlimactic. I never enjoyed yoga when I first started it. And in fact, 10 years ago, if you said this is the way life would start to shape up, I would be quite a non-believer. There was a moment where I was sitting in a class, Pilates class, and it was after a car accident, and I was now starting to do some work around healing, and I had a moment of clarity. My body was relaxed after a stretch and after a workout, and I had this moment where the teacher just gave us room to pause. And I said, oh, there's some magic here. And I could feel myself shift. And very soon, very quickly after that, I found myself introduced to more and more people who were involved in yoga some way, somehow. We fast forward a few years. I had a daily practice. I was enjoying myself, really felt fresh every time I sat on the mat, and every time I stood up I felt like a new person. And my teacher at the time said to me, it's time to take it more seriously. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, it's time to teach. And I went into disbelief. I said, but I can't do this posture or that posture. I'm not flexible. And all of my doubts surfaced, and she looked at me and she said, yoga has nothing to do with the postures. And it just stopped me in my tracks, because what I had been doing on the mat was already serving me to such a great extent. And I realized in that moment that there was so much more to be had. How do you work with your mind? How do you work with the subtle realms of who you are as a person? How do you interact with the world? What's your electromagnetic presence here? And what's your destiny going to be? And in that moment, all of that message was delivered. I didn't know it all. I couldn't articulate it all. But I saw the opening of something vast. And it was the not knowing that made it vast. And it was quite a turnaround for me at that point, because I had spent many years hanging out on the couch, watching TV, smoking cigarettes, and enjoying that life. And then something occurred to me, and I said, if I don't do something different, I will never achieve my potential. And I knew that. And I'm not somebody who would look at potential and back down from it. So I rose to my own occasion. I took my own challenge, and I said, okay, let's do this. I sat down on the mat as a teacher training a trainee, and I never looked back. Never. Not one day.
Now, there are a number of different kinds of yoga. What are the kinds that you practice or teach?
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Near and dear to my heart is Kundalini yoga. And that is a form of yoga that uses movement, mantra, and meditation. It's
one of the most popular forms of yoga, is it?
I would say it's quite rare, actually, to find it.
Okay.
And what makes it rare is that it uses a very traditional form of yoga. It's classically taught, as it was thousands of years ago. So what happens is that as a teacher, you sit down on the mat and you begin to teach, and that is exactly as the teachings were thousands of years ago. And so there is a brilliance that is embedded there. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with how this information comes through as a teacher. So that's the classical form. The newer form that I teach is called laughter yoga.
Laughter yoga.
Laughter yoga has just reached its 16th year in the presence in the world. Just celebrated a couple of weeks ago, actually. And now it is across all countries. There's something like 60,000 laughter clubs around the world. And this is using laughter as a form of exercise. So you don't actually have to be in a good mood. There are no jokes. It's really a matter of practicing with another person or with a group. And that eye contact, that willingness to be playful is really what creates an incredible experience. A very cathartic experience, because you can either laugh or you can cry. So as someone who has trained in laughter, you get all of those amazing benefits. Increased endorphins, elevated mood, your heart starts racing, and it's such a simple form of exercise. You don't need anything special, just a few people to laugh with.
Now, there are some videos on your website of you doing laughter yoga in action, and your URL is
yogavision.com.
yogavision.com. Of course, you can check it out. It's going to make you laugh. But who had thought laughter yoga?
I wish I had thought of it.
Yeah. Who invented it?
Well, his name actually is Dr. Kataria.
Okay.
He is a medical doctor by profession, and he was studying the notion of, does laughter actually help you heal? And he came across enough evidence, enough material evidence that made him say, yes, this is worth pursuing. So he invited a few friends with him to the park in Mumbai. That's where he was living at the time. And he said, will you laugh with me? And they laughed at him, and they said, okay, sure. And after a few days, they ran out of jokes. So as adults, we are trained to laugh at things, and we use our mind very much in terms of laughter. And so after a few days, we ran out of things that were funny, that were mutually explosively funny. So his wife happened to be a yoga teacher, and what they did was they developed a series of exercises that was based on the concept that you fake it until you make it. And you do that with particular sounds, with different gestures, and with pure, simple eye contact. And that's how the practice came to be. And it has evolved with different teachers, different cultural practices around the world. So it is truly a new form of yoga, and one that really unites people. It's as genuine as any other form of yoga, using breath, using movement, and using sound to really generate and harness energy in the body for healing.
Now that would be, sounds to me like it would be a great way for people who are maybe in a depressed state, perhaps to lift them out, people whose energy, maybe they're going through a bad time or through transition, to lift and raise your energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You make a great point. And the idea behind laughter yoga is that you do that practice regularly. And so we laugh in the practice at really things that are not genuinely funny, but because we do it together, we build a practice. And then in regular day life, when you're stuck in traffic or you're in a long line, it's a little lighter, and it's just a little easier to take, because your practice is there to find things that are not generally conceived of as funny, to be, okay, I'm here, so let's just laugh along with it. And it's not a fight anymore, it's a flow.
So Salima, let's talk about Yoga Without Borders. This is a very, very intriguing title for an organization. What is it?
Yoga Without Borders is now taking yoga off the mat. You know, if I go back to my first teacher who looked at me and said, yoga has nothing to do with the postures, she set a tone. And she set a trajectory, I'd say. And it's now offered me a place to look at the world and say, okay, I've generated a certain amount of energy, of focus and concentration and elevation in the world, and now it's time to share that generously with other people. And that means looking out into the world and saying, who else can I help? How can I serve? How can I be of service? Similarly to what you do, you look at women's stories and you say, this needs to be elevated. Similarly, we take yoga off the mat and say, how can we find strategically answers to the question, how do we eradicate violence against women and girls? How do we do that worldwide, and how do we do that permanently in our lifetime? Creating a shift of consciousness so that we are not invested anymore in violence in our culture. We're not invested in violent behavior within ourselves. We actually look into the mirror and we're able to see love, be love, genuinely give from that place of love. And so you can see that it has long arms, long branches, and it has a timeline, because before I leave this planet, that's what's going to happen. And it's a mission, and it's a vision, and it's an idea that yoga has that power. And not even yoga just on the mat, but the ability to connect with another human being and to see our stories as one is really, I think, what Yoga Without Borders has offered in terms of a name, in terms of an organization, and how we connect with each other as women, really and truly.
Now, Salima, it's time for break, and before we do break, I've got my Good to Know Minute, and I know you've got a great tip from a viewer, so jump right in there.
Absolutely. So in the vein of what we've been talking about, is the fastest way to shift consciousness is to give. And that is to turn your attention to somebody else and offer from that place of genuine giving. And as you do that, you turn your attention away from yourself and onto somebody else, you'll find that as you return to your normal life 30 seconds later, a minute later, you'll find your perspective has changed.
Well, that's good to know. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more with Salimah Kassim-Lakha, Executive Director of Yoga Without Borders. So stay where you are. Welcome back to the show. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm speaking with Salimah Kassim-Lakha. And I'm really enjoying this conversation. Yoga is, one of the beautiful things I think about yoga is that you don't need to go to a class. I mean, it is something that you can do on the fly, if you're at home, if you're traveling, if you're on a train or a plane. I mean, you can take a few moments and just simply breathe.
Yes. And that's such a benefit just there.
Yeah.
In that moment where you take that deep breath, something shifts, and all of a sudden there's clarity, and all of a sudden there's a moment of relaxation. And in that moment of relaxation, your body chemistry changes. So it's such an important thing. And no, you don't have to be in a yoga class to do that. Anywhere is good. Always a good idea to go to a class and understand the mechanics of that and understand the benefits of that. But once you've done that a few times, take the practice off the mat. That's the beautiful part.
Now, we're going to talk a bit about some of the specific tips on how you can use yoga to improve your health or maintain a good health. But before we talk about that, I know that you've got something that's really intriguing called What's Behind the Bra.
Yes.
Behind the bra.
Yes.
What's behind the bra about?
What's behind the bra?
Yeah. What's behind the bra?
Right. This is a breast awareness program, and it's a healthy breast awareness program. And a few of us, my yoga therapist colleagues and I, put together a program because on many levels we all have breasts as women, and there are times where the breasts become more important. For example, if there is a crisis or an illness. There are other times in our lives where it becomes a point of self-consciousness, when we're teenagers, when we're growing and just understanding and learning about sexual development. And there are points within that where it's time to look at our relationship with our bodies. So connecting our breast to our health, to our greater well-being is part of what this workshop offers. So there are yogic techniques on how to stimulate the energy and also flow of nutrients in this area, healthy diet, as well as meditation and relaxation. And these are 4 very important tips for women in general, to know how to eat, how to sleep, how to relax, and then how to turn attention with the mind. And then, of course, some postures to help seal in the practice. And so this workshop is being piloted right now, and we are talking to women of all ages, and men who love women as well, to come and participate so that we can spread the message about healthy breasts is a healthy you, really, and dispelling some of those myths about what breasts are and getting that conversation moving. That's the idea.
And of course, earlier in the show, I was speaking with my guest, Kristen Crow, who has quite an inspiring story of really surviving breast cancer and finding herself on the other side of using her experience to create an inspired message for other women. So she's really got quite a story. I encourage you to see her interview. Inspiring woman. Yes,
very much so, and always a great reminder when you hear a story like that, a great reminder of how important it is to pay attention to the messages that we get from our body, from our intuition, and to take advantage of the information that's out there and the programs that are available.
Now, I know that you've got some tips about incorporating yoga, or how can create health benefits.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Let's throw them out there?
Yeah, let's throw them out there.
So tip number 1 is that every hour on the hour, take a long deep breath.
Take a long deep breath.
Every hour on the hour.
Okay, got it.
And it doesn't mean that you're not breathing in between, obviously, but what that means is that you're training yourself to actually go into that practice. So that's a 10-second meditation just right there. The idea is to train yourself so that when you get into a moment of tension or crisis, you have already built the practice. So it's like a pyramid. Here you are already built that fort for yourself, and then you can access it anytime. That's number 1. Number 2 is build a meditation practice into your daily life. This doesn't have to be long. We just talked about a 10-second meditation. Extend it into 3 minutes. And if you're looking to find ways to create 3 minutes in your day, sit for a little bit longer on the throne. Do something like that.
On the throne, meditate on the throne. Okay.
Let's not be shy about it. Let's just say if that's the only time you have, take it and use it. Because it really doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be cross-legged, it doesn't need to be anything other than 3 minutes where you're just paying attention to what's happening in your physical experience and how is your mind working with that.
Talk about maximizing your time.
Absolutely. I hear that excuse all the time, I don't have time, and I think, there's always time.
There's always time to meditate and to breathe.
There's always time. Absolutely. The shower is another good place. Washing dishes is another good place. It really doesn't have to be about a cross-legged particular posture. It doesn't have to be. And especially if that's the reason that we're not doing it.
So just in a regular, everyday activity, we can incorporate a moment or two or a few of meditation and breathing, and that's at least a good start.
Absolutely.
And even if that's not just a good start, if that's all we can do, then that's beautiful.
Absolutely. And I would say to that, a lot of times people say, well, I can't meditate because my mind's too busy. And that is what the human mind is designed for, is to think many thoughts per blink of the eye, thousands of thoughts. And the idea really is to ask ourselves, myself, yourself, what am I thinking? And then the second question is this thought serving me, or is it taking away from my greater joy, my greater experience in life, who I really am? And if the answer is it's taking away, you shift that thought.
But what if someone is really, there are some people who think perhaps more than others, or they get caught up in their thoughts. It sounds like it might be difficult for someone to consistently say to themselves, okay, stop, what am I thinking? Is this thought serving me? And if not, how do I change it? I mean, how do people get into that practice of doing it? Because we've got so much on our minds day in, day out.
I think the answer to that question is you have to be in a place of recognizing that you need it.
Ah, okay.
Because the payoff and the payback is already going to bring you some benefits.
Right.
So if you can acknowledge for yourself, hey, there's a lot of stuff crowding who I really want to be, then you ask yourself the question, okay, is this serving me? My dress doesn't fit me properly, or my shoes don't match, or whatever that happens to be. And ask yourself genuinely, is this helpful? Is this really going to get me to the Nobel Peace Prize, or is it going to get me to a better place in serving dinner to my family tonight? And if the answer is no, then pick something better. In other words, okay, maybe my shoes don't exactly match, but wow, my bracelet looks great. It could be simple as that, and as long as it's a positive piece of information, your mind takes into that a lot more positively, and it starts to direct more things positively.
And I know that you've got one more tip.
I've got one more tip. The tip is do your best to eat a diet that is digested within 18 hours.
Ah.
Yes.
Within 18 hours?
Within 18 hours.
Okay.
So the idea there, to reinforce that idea, is that a vegetarian diet that is mostly organic is good for you, your body, and very good for the planet.
And because you digest it quicker.
And you digest it quicker.
Okay,
yes.
got it.
So, and that's the key to health. If things are moving, then you get to have a body system that is ridding itself of toxins quickly. And that's where the best kind of health comes from.
I've heard it said health begins in the gut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you couple that with the other suggestion, which is use that time to meditate, you're win, win, win all the way around.
Well, Salima, I have really enjoyed this time. I've taken some mental notes. I'll be doing more yoga, and I want to try the laughter yoga because it sounds like so much fun.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate this time with you. Thanks for sharing your tips, your advice, and your inspirational story.
Thank you for the great questions, Shannon.
And well, thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Appreciate that.
Well, for more information about Salima, you can visit my website at extraordinarywomentv.com. You'll see the video there and more information about her. Well, if you are interested in finding out more information about upcoming guests, past guests, or to contact me, of course, you can visit the website at extraordinarywomentv.com. Special thanks to Erin, who's teching today. Really appreciate your help. Well, if you are interested in transforming your life, I hope these stories have inspired you. You've been watching Extraordinary Women TV. I'm Shannon Skinner. See you soon.